particular order. I am going to start out on the West Coast because he's first on my list here for whatever reason, but I don't have a reason for going in the order that I'm going to go. All right. So we're going to start by giving 1 minute to Chuck to tell us who you got in your top five and why you put them there.
Me in the water first. I'm with you though. Let's rock. Okay. Everybody, you know, do y'all thing. Ladies, gentlemen, do y'all thing, man. So here we go. To be honest, I don't have my exact 1 through 5 order, but I'll say them in no particular order per se right now. I got DJ Premier, I got Kanye West, I got RZA, I got Timberland, and I got Dr. Dre.
All right, let me jump in and tell you what you have. You have RZA at number 5, DJ Premier at number 4, Kanye West at number 3, Timberland at number 2, and you got Dr. Dre at number 1. Why is RZA number 5?
Well, RZA. Well, first I want to say my own mental criteria I was going with was authenticity, longevity, and I guess you could say success. So, you know, RZA, man, you know, he was the architect to a very important group in hip hop. He was an architect to, I think, the structure of how hip hop went in New York at that particular time. And then, you know, just over the years, he just continued to transcend into different elements, you know, into the game and the culture. As far as, you know, some of the most recent work was on, I think, Watch the Throne with Jay-Z and Kanye West. So, you know, he just fit my criteria per se.
At number 4, you had DJ Premier. How did he make your list?
I mean, Premier, again, I may be using this word a little often, but he was an architect to, you know, a sound, you know what I'm saying, that hip hop still appreciates today. I think his sound is signature with hip hop. You know, if you don't even know it's him, but you can just tell by the zone or the sonic sound of the song that is a DJ Premier joint. So, you know, whether it's, you know, the Biggie moments to, I mean, fucking Christina Aguilera, like he's just proven that he can make a hit in, you know, all these different years that hip hop been around.
At number 3, you had our next president, Kanye West. How did he make your list?
Ye, man. I was like, how I put Ye in the midst of what Ye is all about right now. He fucking with my Harriet Tubman legacy. Just, oh man, he got me mad. So I'm just letting y'all know I ain't being biased. I'm staying in the lane of an individual versus what his impact really was to the culture. All right. Again, he was an architect of the sound that represented Rockefeller. I mean, it's like, then he decided, you know what? I'm gonna make my own shit and become critically acclaimed. You know what I mean? So West, barring his personal antics and views and outbursts and all the shit, he was just he's an incredible artist. He's fearless. He's willing to, you know, take the culture to a space that we didn't even know it existed. So I just give West his props from the culture of the music sense.
All right. At number 2, you had Timberland. How did he make your list?
You know, it's a trip I said Timberland because, to be honest, I looked at this list and there was a few people that I felt like I was missing. But again, I feel like Timberland, again, he had his own signature sound. He carried Genuine. He carried, you know, Missy Elliott. He had Aaliyah in his corner. He fucking brushed the shoulders off with Jay-Z. I mean, he said, fuck rap and went to Justin Timberlake. I mean, the dude, I think, just consistently was giving us just lanes of dope music that we could rock with, you know? And I just felt like, you know, he just did his thing in his times. When it was his time, when it was his moment, he grabbed it.
Okay. And at number 1, you had Dr. Dre. How did he make your list?
I mean, I mean, I don't know where to start. It's like Dre is just the institution of hip hop, man. He stopped and did some music with Michelle A, for example. Like he decided, I'm gonna bring this white boy to the culture. Dre said, I'm so into sound, I'm gonna give you headphones. I'm gonna say fuck the police and y'all gonna be with us. Like, it's just different culture moments. I mean, I'll never forget that night that I saw for the first time on the box, Ain't Nothing But a G Thing. On the box. Again, as I don't know if y'all remember the box, but the box, G Thing was number one the entire month. Like it was like meteoric. So, Dre is just, again, he's a very prominent space, not only for hip hop, but of course the West Coast. It's like, I don't know what the West Coast would look like without Dr. Dre.
All right. Any follow-up questions to Chuck's list? Judges, Marlon?
1 second here.
I can't argue with his list because he got some of the crop producers. It's just a few that I just wonder that he left off. Like who did you feel that you left off?
DJ Quick, Jay Dilla. I would even get Organized Noise, Neptune.
Okay.
And none of those guys could have knocked RZA off.
Hell yeah. I think, or maybe first one coming to my mind is Organized Noise.
Yeah, if you had to replace RZA with someone at number 5, it would be who?
Out of those I just said, and again, it's if we ask them my personal opinion or what opinion that I have that they impacted culture, that's kind of the space that I'm missing in my own mind. But if it was for me, if it's just for me personally, it's going to be somebody like a DJ Quick or Organized Noise, because I know how much, obviously on the West Coast, we love DJ Quick. I love how he was down with Above the Law to, Penthouse Players Click and Sugar Free, and I love that era. But then Organized Noise came with, of course, Outkast, CeeLo, and you know what I'm saying, and Goody Mob, and all those dope sounds. Even Future kind of is a part of that branch. Like, so I really appreciate Organized Noise's legacy as well.
And I have a question. I was going to ask you. So, with RZA being, I guess 5 on your list, how do you feel he was so low? With RZA being so influential in a unique New York sound, Wu-Tang went beyond the music culturally, internationally, brand-wise. You got Asian kids and white kids around the world to this day that die by that Wu-Tang logo. You think about even their influence on Kung Fu flicks. They're some of the cats who first really back in the day got me into Kung Fu flicks. So even beyond the music, RZA he was the architect of a whole movement when it came to hip hop. So just curious, like, how did he fall so low on your list?
Hands down, all valid points. And I pride myself with being a true hip hop head. I'm straight East Oakland, born and raised.
Yeah.
But I really pride myself with being a hip hop head. And I think, to me, I was trying more or less to give him his flowers in my aspect by putting him in my top 5.
Yeah.
As number 1. And then number 2, it was like, to be real, you had to be basically a true hip hop purist type dude to really appreciate maybe at even the space you love RZA. You get what I'm saying? I don't think a lot of my friends here in the West Coast was just jamming RZA sounds all the time. it was maybe like that following of hip hop heads that were like me, that was into lyrics with, you know, the Purple Tape and, and ODB, and like I was into that shit. I could catch the vibe in the energy in that shit. Versus, you know, maybe partners who was down south or partners who's in the West Coast. So bottom line is I totally got a dope appreciation for what RZA did for the culture. That's why basically more or less I put him in my top 5.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
All right. Any follow up? If not, I'll go on to the next.
Okay. Let's go.
All right. Yep. Okay, Tanika, Kiki. Go with you, Kiki. Why don't you tell us who your top 5 were, and why did you put them in that order?
Now I gotta remember again. Kanye West.
You had Kanye West at number 5. Why Kanye West? How did he make your list?
Well, I like Kanye West because I know though he's bipolar and everything, but I just like his different sounds and what he brought to the. No, because but seriously, because when people are, like sometimes like insanity brings out the best in you. Like they great, you bring out great music, and I think that besides his personal life that's going on, he's really brilliant behind, what he does, and being a rapper, producer, and he can switch up different genres. Like, he went gospel. He was, Jesus Walks. He went there, and, he just brings in different sounds and bringing people from different directions. So that's why I like Kanye West. All
right. At number 4, you had Timberland. What did you like about
I love Timberland. I love Timberland because from different. Now, I didn't disagree with the guy about Missy Elliott because I think Missy Elliott stands on her own, by herself. But I love Timberland from the different sounds that he creates, especially as a female, because females like music that they can dance to, they can bop to, and but it's not the same sound that they hear all the time. So that's why I like Timberland, especially what he did and recreated Aaliyah when that time, the first album was with R. Kelly, and then the second time when she came out with Timberland, a whole different sound. So I think he can go from different genres, because I look at people, like the other guy said, longevity, but also how you, within the culture, how did you help the culture? And I feel like he's a person that can go from one genre to another genre, and still you don't really know it's him, and it still sounds amazing.
Okay, and your number 3 was DJ Premier.
Oh, I love DJ. Yeah. With Gangstar, and so I just, even with Gangstar, even coming from the East Coast, and even being a female, because a lot of times we don't want to hear beats that's boring, like you in a car just smoking some weed, or like, okay, the beat nice, but this is not really related to me as a female. You don't really want to hear that, but his beats was something that you still can adapt to, just like what he did to Wick and everything else. I like his beats, and that's something as a female you can still gravitate to and still be involved and still really like all he did, at the time. So I love DJ Premier. So
okay, at your number 2, you had the Neptunes. Tell us about it.
Neptunes. Okay, so Neptunes is pretty much the same thing. Like they go through different genres of music and still create these hits and really rebuild a lot of the artists. So I love the Neptunes because, again, as a female, I'm looking to beats about what I can dance to, what I can vibe to, with something in the morning to that's gonna get me motivated. And so their beats is like something that's reflective of what I like to, and the longevity of what they did.
All right, and your number 1 was Dr. Dre. Why?
Okay, now Dr. Dre, even though I'm not a West Coast person, I definitely don't really like West Coast. I'm sorry, guys, I'm really not a West Coast person. But I do gotta give respect to where respect is due. So that's why I picked Dr. Dre, is because you just have to see what did he do for the culture, how did he impact the culture, and how, even though he is West Coast, the beats are amazing. The guy is a genius. I can't not take anything away from him, because he is a genius. I'm working with Snoop Dogg, working with Eminem, working with, with NWA, working with Miss Chalet, with all the other people that he's impacted, and a lot more that he's impacted. He's timeless. So that's why that's why I chose him, because you got to think about how he impacted the culture. What what did he do that was game changing? And then look at his span and range. You know, he's still relevant to this day.
All right. Any follow-up questions?
God, here we go.
Was that Jamie Foxx?
Yeah, I have a follow-up. So actually I have two. So specifically on Dr. Dre, you're talking about him being a game changer. What things stand out to you that he did that were game changers?
I guess like number one, because I think a lot of times we think of producers or even like hip hop producers only being able to just stick with one type of music. But what he did for Michel'le, I first, like long time ago, I did not even know he was behind Michel'le music. So that was like amazing to me. So that's one of the things. Number two, the impact that he did with the Eminem, bringing out Eminem. That was also game changer. Because think about it, he's from West Coast, and then Eminem is all the way from Detroit, Michigan. So that was also as well, being able to collaborate from the West Coast to the East Coast, because most of the time, West Coast normally have the same type of sound. You already know it's from the West Coast, and I just don't really like that sound from, However, you can't really tell that with him. He knows
taking
how to
shots,
adapt,
man. She's taking shots.
I'm not so sorry. I know how to adapt. That's it. I'm sorry.
You had a second part to that?
Yeah, and so for a couple of the artists you mentioned, you talked a lot about beats and that the beats were relatable.
Right.
Were you referring to beats or were you referring to lyrics? Do you just like the way the beats made you feel? Give me a little bit more on that.
Right. So I'm not talking about hooks. So first of all, when it comes to hooks, like we already know that to create a hook, you only need like a certain few words to create a hook to make people like, oh, okay, it's your birthday, like whatever. Because I'm coming from my perspective as a female. For me, it's a few things that will attract me. It's always the beat. What is going to get me out my seat? What is going to make me dance? What is going to make me feel good? Like when I go into a business meeting and I know it's going to be a rough day, I play 8-Ball, Don't Make Me Kill Somebody Up in Here. Like, I play that all the time because that gets me pumped up. So that's, so it's an adrenaline rush. So I go by beats, and then, so a hook is totally different from a beat to me. So the beat, it has to be the beat.
All right. Any follow-up questions from any of the players? No? Okay. Then DJ Spaceship down in Tampa, Florida. Spaceship, give us your top 5.
Number 5 is Swiss Beats. Number 4, I got Kanye West. Number 3, I got Timbaland. Number 2, I got Organized Noise. And number 1, I'm going to keep it uniform, I got Dr. Dre.
All right. So why Swiss Beats number 5?
I picked Swiss Beats because Swiss Beats is a pioneer, and like everybody on the list, everybody has something that they've done better or that others did not do. He took the biking culture, like motorcycles, dirt bikes, and gave them a voice musically, turned that into his sound. Rough Riders, DMX, The Lox, who was it? Was it Drake? I think he did something Fancy. Yeah, Fancy. Yeah. So he's done so many different things, and then now with him having the platform versus with him and Timbaland, like it just started out as him and Timbaland doing their thing, going against each other. And with the pandemic, it's put it in a position where it was able to grow. So now he's got everybody looking forward to, the verses. He started out with just producers based. Then he went over and he had Babyface and Teddy Riley come through. He turned around and he had Queen Erykah Badu and Queen Jill Scott. He had Put the Caribbean on with my man Beanie Man, Vibes Cartel, and then he just had a legendary Snoopin' DMX. So, Swiss Beats is a pioneer, and he's shaking the game in his own way by doing those things.
All right. What about you put Kanye West at number 4?
Kanye West, outside of Nelly, outside of Nelly, Twista, Bone Thugs, he's one of the biggest things to come out of the Midwest. Look at his sound when he did his first single, Through the Wire. He did that with his jaws wired shut from a car accident. Outside of Jay-Z, when you look at Rockefeller Records, there was only 3 artists signed to Rockefeller imprint that went platinum. Jay-Z was number 1,
Cameron was number 2, who was signed by Dame, which was Jay-Z's idea. He didn't like him like that. And 3, Kanye West. So his first 2 albums, you know, College Dropout, Late Registration, you know, those was dope. And at the time, he also made history when 50 Cent was a juggernaut. 50 Cent came out, he shut down Murder Inc., the entire thing. Ashanti couldn't have them on her albums anymore because they were talking about her sideburns and stuff. But Kanye West took the challenge and shut 50 down. 50 said, if Kanye outsells me, I won't make no more music. And Kanye shut him down, like single-handedly. And then he took his sound to the next level, you know, My Twisted Dark Fantasy, Yeezus, you know, like he challenged not only himself, but he challenged the listeners and creatives in his same space as well. I think that, you know, not to get personal, because I think going personal is too much. I think he's where he is now. You know, when you have great people that don't have no challenges, they don't feel challenged, they're bored, nothing to do, like a Lauryn Hill, like a Lauryn Hill, like a Andre 3000. It's not a challenge. Rick Rubin. It's not a challenge to me no more. So who am I racing against at this point? It's like Secretariat racing Secretariat. There's no Seabiscuit. There's no American Pharoah. There's no other Kanye in his eyes. So I feel that he's just bored right now. And unfortunately, I feel like he hasn't properly grieved from the loss of his mother as well. And that family he's with, all that glitters ain't gold, brother. It ain't gold. He need to get out. Get out.
All right, you got Timbaland at number 3.
Timbaland. He's a pioneer. Before Timbaland, who was Virginia? He came out and said it himself. I declared Virginia plan. Have people shaking my hand. A lot of people, I don't know if you guys know this, but Missy is responsible for Timbaland's sound. She was a big influence to Timbaland because when he first came out making his beats, he wasn't as confident in himself. So behind every strong black man, you have a strong black woman. That was the strong black woman. And Missy was the one that kept telling me, hey, do your thing, do your thing. So, you know, everybody in here knows, everybody remember going to school, somebody made the beat on the table, beating on the table, or beatboxing with their mouth. That was Timbaland. And like someone said earlier, you know, Aaliyah coming from R. Kelly, hate or love it, R. Kelly is a machine. Like his writing, his producing, he's a machine. So to take Aaliyah from where she was at and create the style that she had, she was Beyonce before Beyonce. She was the second coming of Janet Jackson, sort of. Because let's be clear, Beyonce do her thing, but Beyonce is the second Janet Jackson. Rhythm Nation was the first Beehive. Let's just be clear. Shout out to Texas. But to get back to Timbaland, his sounds, like he went from Aaliyah, she passed away. That was his big thing. He had Magoo. Missy was in the team, Genuine, Player. You know, he had a strong camp, and then he turned over to Justin Timberlake. And Timbaland, he's worked with quite a bit of people. And his cousin, the futuristic sound that he has also weighed and had an influence on his cousin, Pharrell, for the Neptunes. So that's his cousin as well. So Timbaland, before Timbaland in Virginia, what was Virginia other than just a state?
All right. Let's go to your number 2, Organized Noise. Now, I got to say, Organized Noise made the list from 2 people, but don't you tell me why it made it so close to number 1 on your list?
The reason why I put Organized Noise at number 2 is because everybody knows Outkast, Goody Mob, Dungeon Family. That's what they do. Sleepy Brown's father was the lead singer of the group. Is it Brick? The old school. I think the group. She's smiling up. That's it, Rica. But being from the South, being brown, being black people, we have so many influences that influence us musically. We dig into our history. We dig into, things that we go through with experiences and stuff. When it comes to Organized Noise, you have 3 brothers that were all great in their own right of what they did individually and was able to sync that together. I mean, let's be clear. Outkast alone, they're the first and only group to go diamond. There's been no other hip hop group to go diamond outside of Outkast. Of the top 10 albums that in hip hop that has went diamond, I don't think there's even another group from the South. So for them, and they had a big influence in Speaker Box Love Below, which at the time took over BET. MTV, BET Soul, and there was another one I can't think of off the top of my head. But their album had all those channels. I mean, you got white people screaming, "Hey, yeah, I like the way you move," just the different stuff. And that was kind of Andre 3000's exit from music, when he did the freestyle at the end. But I mean, and then they did Waterfalls, TLC. They wrote some of it, they arranged it, and they produced the beat. Waterfalls was a big song for TLC. So when you look at Organized Noise, they know what kind of talent goes with the vibe that they have, with them being from Atlanta and working with different people. And like the Dungeon Family, it's so many generations and so many different people. You got Janelle Monáe, you got Future, who was Meathead back then. You also have Killer Mike was a part of that. So Organized Noise, for me, as far as like production groups, they if you tell somebody to name the top 5 production groups, you'll be lucky to hear their name once. But when you look at their catalog, you might want to mention their name at least once. So that's the reason why I picked Organized Noise.
All right, and number 1's Dr. Dre. Why number 1 for you?
Dr. Dre was number 1 for me because, when you look at what he's done, just how he's influenced the culture, you look at the West Coast, like you can't think California without thinking Dr. Dre. There's no way you can think West Coast hip hop without Dr. Dre. You probably can't even find a producer that has influenced West Coast hip hop bigger or more than Dr. Dre. He started with Michel'le. He did with the things he did with Death Row. Like, let's be clear, when he was with Death Row with Tupac and Suge and Snoop, he had to leave all that behind to go and create the Aftermath. And he came out. How many people can get here and then have to do it again and then go here? Dr. Dre is one of them. Dr. Dre's worked with so many different people. He took Eminem, like, as far as white, I don't like to play the race, but as far as like white rappers, whatever the producer could have took Eminem to where he did. Then he turned around and he helped out with 50 Cent. Then he turned around and he got the game, and the game. He brought the game back. So he worked with Mary J. Blige. He's worked with so many different people. Tony Braxton. When you look at his catalog and production credits and writing credits, he's got a very extensive catalog. One of the biggest things that on a personal level for me with Dr. Dre that hits home for me is the fact that when Michel'le did her Tell All movie, he didn't come out and try to deny none of it. He came out, he admitted it, and he apologized. That's something that's big to do, not just as a man, but as a black man. You see what I'm saying? So, and to be able to see, growing up as a kid, I never thought that it was a chance for me to become president, until Barack Obama did it. I never thought that I can be a CEO on a Fortune 500 company like that. But then Dr. Dre gave hope to the people up under me and myself as well, because when he created beats and then turned around and sold that off, I mean, let's be clear. Like, Dr. Dre he's a machine, and he also has students. So you have Scott Storch came out of his camp, who was not better. He wasn't better than Dr. Dre, but Scott Storch was a major player. Even though he assisted on a lot of his hit records he made, Dr. Dre still had people. He worked with Eve. So Dr. Dre he's a monster.
All right. Any follow-up? Okay.
Well, hold on. Sorry. Go ahead.
So I want to go back to Timberland.
All right.
I want to go back to Timberland. Are people forgetting who actually discovered Timberland and I see a lot of people got Timberland on a list, but do people know really where Timberland came from? Who coached him and brought him out?
Teddy Riley?
No.
I was thinking Teddy Riley, but I know I was wrong on that one.
No, not at all. Somebody from North Carolina, one of the greatest producers. That's Devontae. I mean, y'all really forgetting about Devontae
and I think I had a question going back to Organized Noise sitting so high on your list. Now, I could be wrong, right? But when you think of Organized Noise's run, where you're talking about Outkast, Goody Mob, etc., right? The window of that run for the most, when they had peaked, would you say it was like a relatively small window in comparison to some of the other people on this list? And so because of that, what makes you place them so high?
Good point. I placed them so high, like their window, the run that they had was not as long as some of the other people, but their moves and impact was just not, if not more impactful than a lot of other people. Like I said, you know, some of the songs they produce, the hits they produce, a lot of people don't know it unless they're like, you know, us in this chat on a Zoom, you know, where you actually hear something and you want to know, okay, who wrote this song, who did the instrumentation, the beats and stuff like that. Also, when it comes to Organized Noise, when you listen to their catalog as well, they don't do samples. Dr. Dre does samples, RZA does samples, Swizz Beatz does samples, Kanye is a sample, Timbaland doesn't. So that's another thing that influenced when it comes down to Organized Noise as well.
Okay. All right.
Politician, man, come on, y'all vote for me. Somebody vote for me.
All right. So let me go to Crucial D. Crucial D. Why don't you tell us who's in your top 5 and why?
Okay, so I'm sorry. I was about to write down something. So my top 5 consists of number 5 is Swizz Beatz, number 4 would be Timberland, 3 is Sir Jinx, 2 is Dre, and 1 is Marley Marl.
Marley Marl. So first of all, I got to say you're the only person on the planet that didn't have Dr. Dre number 1 on this thing. So bravo for thinking outside the box. It depends on what you say about it, but.
I'm bringing the fire. That's all I'm saying. I'm bringing fire. You know what I mean?
I'm really curious to know how.
Start with your number 5.
Okay.
Swizz Beatz.
So 5 is Swizz Beatz. So you got to give it to, for me, I'm giving it to Swizz Beatz because he had to bring New York back, you know, because according to Jay-Z, which he produced, he said, I'm trying to restore the feeling, you know, ever since Snoop came through and crushed the building. So New York, traditionally, when you think of hip hop, you think of New York. It got to a point where West Coast came and kind of like made New York not shine as bright. Swizz Beatz, when he actually came out and you got the Jay-Z and Rough Riders, that's when we got our swag like, yeah, we can bring it back. Prior to that, it was, yo, I'm NWA, yo, straight out of Compton. So we actually took on that persona. I mean, persona of the West Coast, even though we was East. So it actually gave us, you know what I'm saying, it gave us our big NY on our chest back. So Swizz is responsible for a lot of that. So he brought the heat to me back to the city. New York State. Not saying that we ain't the best, because we is, but I just saying that.
Yeah.
All right. Number 4, Timberland. What do you share with us about Timberland?
Okay, so Timberland, he had a totally different feel. When he came out, he had a totally different feel. It brought a totally different swag. So in reference to the hip hop culture, our culture is about feeling. It's about how it puts you in a different mindset. So when he came out with Aaliyah, when he came out with Genuine, not only that, he brought, to me, a great producer brings a lot of other great people. So again, you got the Genuine, the Ludacris, Aaliyah, just like he got a lot of projects that are monumental, like for the culture, if that kind of like makes sense. Do anybody need more elaboration?
No, we'll get to that.
I get it. Yeah.
Okay. So number 3 is Sir Jinx.
Sir Jinx. How did you come with Sir Jinx? That's my man.
Okay. So what comes first, the egg or the chicken? You know what I mean? So you got to give homage to where homage is due. So Sir Jinx, when you talk about Dr. Dre, Sir Jinx is his cousin. So when you think of the whole Dr. Dre element, it wouldn't really be, not saying that Dre can't hold his own, but that kind of like is behind our force. That was the unification of the NWA and different things like that for Q. So when Q came out with America's Most Wanted, you know what I mean? That was Jinx. So when you think about the epic battle between NWA and Q, that's who made that happen. Without that, then that would have never happened. So he definitely has a foothold, and it's funny no one even mentioned him, but he has a foothold in reference to the culture. Because when you think of, let's say, the West Coast, you say, yeah, Dre, but you also think of Cube. So Cube came at a more, like a deeper thought process. So Dre is more gangster rapper, and Cube is more like, yo, Cube is deep, you know. So Jinx he actually produced Cube after Dre, and he's the Boys in the Hood soundtrack. So you think about the Boys in the Hood soundtrack, that in itself impacted the culture in such a huge way. Like, when you hear the West Coast, again, it puts you in a mindset. Like, when you first watch Menace to Society, you left like, yo, I can't believe they killed them. You know what I mean? So it puts you in that mindset. So that's what the West Coast brought. So, like, again, the Boys in the Hood, his influence in reference to that and the production, it made you feel a certain way in reference to, like, the culture at that particular time. So next is number 2, Dr. Dre. So his legacy to me is the father of gangster rap. So when you know about, like, the history of it, it really wasn't gangster rap. So not saying that New York didn't have gangster rap, but it wasn't gully and just ignorant and I mean, it wasn't that. So he set the tone for the whole world in reference to gangster rap. So if it wasn't really Dre, you wouldn't think of it the way that you think of it now. It wouldn't have went to the next level. So you got that. Dre made other great artists. So you got Eminem, of course, 50 Cent. You got Michelle. The fact that he old school, like, so Dre started in 85, right? When he was part of the World Class Wrecking Crew. So he rebranded himself from spandex to the father of gangster rap. So to be able to know that you're an infinite being and whatever you choose to represent, and as long as you thorough with that, you can make it happen. That, to me, is influential in the culture as a whole, meaning no matter where you come from, the sky is the limit. So when you see that in reference to, he don't talk about his actions from back then wearing spandex to Dre beats to, I mean, the moves he's making now. What else? Of course, like, so JJ Fad, it's so many people under his list that when you think about hip hop, you're like, oh yeah, JJ Fad and let's see what, DOC. You know what I'm saying? Like, just iconic people in the industry that would have never existed if Dre never existed. So Dre's my 2. Number 1 is Marley Marl. First of all, out of everybody, I believe he was the you got to pay homage, right? Homage. You got to give homage. So he is the father of not battle rap, but reply. So UTFO, you know what I mean, did Roxanne. He had Roxanne Shante come out, and you know what I mean, with the response. Prior to that really, he kind of set the precedence for that. So that's one. In addition to that, in reference to, you think of New York, again, where kind of like hip hop started at, he's one of the founding fathers. So not saying Sugar Hill Gang ain't, I'm just saying, you know what I mean, because we can go back. But in reference to the list, he, to me, was the oldest. So when you say, oh, well, could it be a Dre if it wasn't for Marley Marl? Nah, because you got LL Cool J, you got Cool G Rap, you got Eric B. and Rakim. So you got so many huge, epic artists that if they didn't, how would there even be hip hop to where it is now? So you got who else? Biggie, give him a shout out. You know what I'm saying? So legends giving a legend a shout out. So you gotta again pay homage. So what else? There's something else. Oh, so when you talk about sampling, he started all of that. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's one of the ones that initially started playing with the sampling. So I respect any producer that say, you know what, all right, I might be dope. Well, who was dope before me, and bring that back and introduce that to the current, you know, like the current culture. So, like, to me, it's kind of like a history lesson. The symphony, what? Are you crazy? I mean, crazy. The symphony, where would hip hop be without the symphony? Like, I'm like, what? Okay, so in reference to that, even though I think he's the most influential in my number 1, it's interesting to me because in reference to, because I looked up Audi net worth, his net worth is what, like $5 million. Out of everybody that's on my list, he's the lowest, but without him, there wouldn't be the other ones. And I strongly and sincerely believe that. But it shows that somebody has to start, you know what I mean? And we'll build. So that, to me, And like you guys were talking about RZA, Premier. Guess what? They all give homage to him. So in reference to a lot of those lists, you know what I mean? You got to see who the forefather is, who actually set the foundation. So he's a foundation starter. I mean, he's a foundation setter. And that's why he's my number one.
All right.
All right.
All right.
Man,
If I could just say this, I'm not gonna. I don't think I'm gonna change my list. But that campaign you just went on for Marley Marl, like, first of all, Cold Chillin' was a dope era. Don't get you right. Cold Chillin' was a dope. I mean, Big Daddy Kane, Biz Markie, Craig G. Come on, I can't leave out G Rap. I mean, it was a very iconic moment that unfortunately it just like when it left, he left. You know what I'm saying? So it was like, you know, he had a hell of a ride. Like, thank you for even putting that break in my brain, because, you know, Cold Chillin' should have a story did about it.
All right, any more follow-up?
Yeah, no, I agree. I hear all the passion in all your picks. No Primo in the top 5 though.
Right.
No, listen, everybody is epic and iconic. But for me, I look at the tenure, and I look at if they didn't exist, could the culture still exist? You know what I mean? And I'm not saying that if Primo wasn't on there, the culture still couldn't exist. But it's times that when you think, if you can think of a producer and it takes you to a time and a place, not even the accolades of who they produce, but it can take you to a time and a place. You know what I mean? Like, they are forever embedded in your head. So, again, it's not about like the Grammys and all these different things. It's about the influence to me on the culture. How, like, would I let my kids see it? I mean, or listen to it? Like, I got 3 kids that rap. They know about the symphony, and I still play that. You want to know why? Because it gives you the same feel and the same energy. So in order to respect where we're going to go, we got to respect the past, look at the present, you know what I mean, and collaborate it and give homage to the past. That's it. Sorry, no.
Sorry.
You do, but no.
Okay, so no Primo, and that's why.
Yeah.
All right. So moving to the last but not least, we go to El Biz. Mr. Donald, tell us who your top 5.
All right, starting from number 5, and I'll just run through who I got for my 5, and then we can do. Okay, so 5 I have Swizz Beatz. 4 I have RZA. 3 I have Organized Noise. Number 2 is Timbaland, and number 1 is Jay Dilla.
Jay Dilla, number 1. That's different. It's a turn. So tell me why Swizz Beatz.
Swizz Beatz, to me, beside the fact that, you know, because everyone that put Swizz Beatz on the list, they mentioned about, of course, the Rough Riders and DMX and the sound for that specific era. You know, what I believe Swizz Beatz to be one of the fathers of minimalist sound. Coming from New York, going to the South, being in the South, and really getting his start in the South. And I believe it's Atlanta when he was going to college. He was DJing and making mixtapes and whatnot, and started to garner his sound as he was in Atlanta. So the irony is that that minimalist sound, almost kind of similar to like a Little John with like minimalist keys and symphony and synths and whatnot. Swizz Beatz kind of started a lot of that stuff when it comes to production, when it comes to, you know, a specific sound. Marlon looking like, nah. but for me, it's like, it's a New York thing, you know what I'm saying, where, you know, it was heavy hitting, of course, is representing the, you know, the Rough Riders and the whole biker movement. But at the same time, you know, he was able to take that, although short-lived Rough Rider run, so to speak, as far as the collective is concerned, he was still able to branch off and work with major artists, still be able to do an Upgrade You with Beyonce, you know, still be able to, you know, fast forward to today, be a part of and be one of the architects of the whole Versus movement, curating art sessions and so on and so forth, to, you know, with Art Basel. you know, one of the infamous. No, I'm doing something right now. So, you know, it's a lot of. I totally got thrown off, but for me, it's that minimalist sound. Like you can even consider like a Mike Will Made It. Mike Will Made It says like I only use like 3, 4, maybe 5 instruments on my sound. Something that Swizz Beatz started with. Like if you think of Rough Riders Volume 1 with the Jigga My Nigga song. It was probably like 4 or 5 sounds on that beat. But within that summertime, it was like just one of the biggest songs on that compilation project, which at the time it was a big deal to create compilation projects. And you ended up having like the Cash Money's doing group projects together with all of the entire roster on an album or something like that. But like I even raised the question the other day, like what compilation project was as big as Rough Riders Volume 1, which that sound, what I mean, your opinion, but that specific sound is not only that, but you have to consider the fact that the Lox were a part of that Rough Riders movement, which changed the sound, and they're one of the longest tenured hip hop trios in existence, and they're still relevant to this day, just like Swizz Beatz is still relevant to this day. So for me, it's, you know, like if Juicy J was on the list, I would have picked Juicy J over Swizz Beatz. He wasn't on the list, so I picked Swizz Beatz based on the fact that he has a minimalist sound. It wasn't no samples involved. It was around the time where the game was switching, and there was a whole lot of, you know, issues with sampling songs. And he took a Casio keyboard and made $1 million before he turned 25, making beats for his uncle in their Black-owned business. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I picked Swizz Beatz.
All right, at your number 4, you had the RZA.
RZA, again, I mean, I'm going to be echoing some things that were already said because, you know, I went last. So, but I mean, how could you not? I mean, the Wu-Tang is for the children. Wu-Tang is for the world. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like no matter where you go, where you from, everybody knows somebody that knows the Wu-Tang. The W is an emoji on our phones. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like that, like the sound, like his gritty sound, his underground sound. To me, it fathered a lot of producers and a lot of sounds. You take Alchemist is a gritty sounding producer that comes from that ilk. But Planet Asia, even the Griselda movement now, it's a lot. Like it spans from the time that he began to up to today. That sound is impacting an entire, like multiple generations of hip hop artists. And then just the fact that it wasn't a whole lot of assistant production involved. There was Mathematics was one other person that was involved with helping them produce their sound. So, but it was still, RZA was at the helm of all of it to the point where like Ghostface's first album, The Purple Tape, is legendary. Method Man's To Cow is legendary. Into the Wu-Tang, which was one of the comparatives to the whole Crew Collective album when I was talking about the Rough Riders. Like, but the Into the 36 Chambers is like one of the most iconic albums ever, and it's done by the RZA. Like, there's like, they really took a song that had no hook on it and presented a hip hop group to the mainstream through RZA production. So I mean, RZA at number 4. I wanted to put him a little bit higher, but I didn't.
So, but you got Organized Noise higher than RZA. Why?
I have Organized Noise higher than RZA because I appreciate and respect musicianship and hip hop production. And not to mention the fact that at the time where Organized Noise is producing for Outkast and Goody Mob and so on and so forth, they're doing R&B records and working with LaFace and working with TLC and working with Tony Braxton. I mean, DJ Spaceship, he kind of covered the gamut. But then at the same time, it was a lot of that happening in the South. I know, like, somebody else that wasn't on the list, I wouldn't have picked them, but just would have liked to seen them. But Pimp C wasn't listed. And Pimp C was a producer, which most people don't even really know. But it was a lot of, like, that Southern twang with the guitar and so on and so, like, in the production, like, Organized Noise was doing that. They were doing a whole lot of that. And it went from from basement gutter production a la Wu-Tang and Mobb Deep and so on and so forth to musical production, which you can almost thank Organized Noise for Rick Ross's sound, who, in my opinion, has one of the most solid catalogs in hip hop, at least for the latter generations, the 90s, I would say mid to late 90s and up. Like, he has one of the most solid catalogs, and a lot of his sound coming from the Justice League, it was fathered by Organized Noise, in my opinion. Again, it's because it's got such musicality to it. Not only that, but in comparison to, like, a lot of people pick Dr. Dre. To me, it's Dr. Dre was taking samples of big bands and taking those songs and turning them into hit records. A lot of those songs are familiar to us because it was all punk, all funkadelic influence. And you're taking those samples and switching up the drums and adding a slap to it and making it a little bit heavier and more looped. It's almost, to me, it's like Organized Noise did that without doing it, without taking from something that had already existed and creating a sound, being musicians. So that's why I picked And then, you know, like, again, it's musicianship. So.
Okay, you had Timbaland at number 2.
I put Timbaland at number 2, and primarily is because it's similar to I would say what Swizz Beatz kind of did in regards to the minimalist sound, but it was more of an innovative sound. It was like double, triple time hi-hats, different measures that a lot of producers, the majority of production wasn't being done like that at all. Like, you know, like granted, Aaliyah had her start with R. Kelly, and it was a whole different type of sound than what happened when Timbaland got a hold of her. But the One in a Million album was so innovative because of the sound. And then, and you take Timbaland being able to obviously work with, I was going to mention Jodeci, and Jodeci being a part of that, Missy Elliott movement, Tweet movement. He went across the border and grabbed Nelly Furtado and helped her to chart on the American charts, you know, doing pop music, JT as well. And then he's a performer himself, which is not necessarily the case for everybody else that's on at least my list. He's a performer himself that's been able to chart as an artist as well as a producer. No knock to Kanye West, but, you know, I'll get to that in a second. But to me, it's Timbaland with the electronic sound, who you can almost probably, like to Kiki, says, you know, like it's being related to Pharrell, even though they only a year apart in age. It's being able to father a Virginia sound that other people decide, okay, I can be just as innovative as I like, you know, like, and then just have that sound for so long and be so innovative and be able to inspire other producers. A lot of these producers that you hear nowadays that's playing around with the hi-hats on the beats or the filters or the time signatures, that to me that comes from Timbaland, you know. Okay,
going down the list.
Last but not least, and I'm so disappointed that y'all did not mention Jay Dilla. I'm so sad because for me, it's Jay Dilla, like, Tribe Called Quest existed before Jay Dilla, but Jay Dilla took it to the next level, in my opinion. Like, part of the reason why Jay Dilla didn't flourish, I would guess, in a limelight is because Q-Tip was such a big figure in front of Tribe Called Quest, but Jay Dilla was right there to help cultivate that sound, for one. For two, he was a bi-coastal artist bi-coastal producer coming from the Midwest that was able to push the culture with the Tribe Called Quest and with the Pharcyde, which, all due respect to Dr. Dre, did not have as much of an impact from a group standpoint across the board, bi-coastal, than Jay Dilla.
Right.
And again, I mean, y'all say what y'all want. Say what y'all want, but I'm talking about Pharcyde. I'm talking about the Native Tongues. I'm talking about Soulquarians. I'm talking about again, like we west to east in the Midwest. And then not only that, but for everybody that picked Kanye, how could you not pick Jay Dilla? How could you not pick Jay Dilla and you pick Kanye? Because Jay Dilla, before Jay Dilla Midwest sound, Jay Dilla is the Midwest sound when it comes to pure hip hop purists. and the Kanye sample, the heavy samples. So like in an essence, you want to credit Kanye for fathering the next generation of the Rockefeller sound. You got to give that credit to Jay Dilla. And then it's Jill Scott, Erykah Badu, D'Angelo, Common, like the Roots. Jay Dilla is in the fold with all of that. And then not to mention Busta Rhymes. Not to mention Busta Rhymes, because after the Leaders of the New School situation changed up and he started working with Busta Rhymes, and it wasn't just in the beginning either. It was in the beginning on to the Genesis album. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, so we talking about almost a decade worth of production, and then just like everybody else says, like, yo, a lot of the top producers in the game will show tribute to Jay Dilla, even Premier. So I mean, like, salute to Premier. I wanted to put him on my list too, but Jay Dilla to me is like the father of Midwest boom bap sound and innovative production, and he was a multi-instrumentalist as well. So you know, so outside of Organized Noise being one of the instrumentalists that I picked for my list, Jay Dilla in his own right played, like, I want to say like 3 or 4 instruments, maybe more. So Jay Dilla on the top of my list, man.
All right, this is incredible. So that wraps up the first part of this, and the judges are going to bounce out in a second and go into a breakout room. But I do want to say a couple of things. Is there any follow-up to anything that in this list? Anybody have any follow-up?
I've seen a lot of faces, man. A lot of people had a lot to say about it.
Okay, so Spaceship, go ahead.
Okay, so like you said, you know, it goes with, like you said, you being a purist of hip hop. But when you say Jay Dilla, the reason why I would put Kanye, because you said you questioned people that had Kanye and not Dilla, or mentioned Dilla. Dilla was that dude, but Dilla was not his catalog, and it's good because of his untimely demise. His catalog wasn't nowhere near as diverse as a Kanye West. What pop hits did he have? How many pop hits did he have?
Fair enough.
You know, but not to taking it no smoke from him. So yes, you are correct. Kanye is a student of Dilla, but he took the wheel and made it a rim and made it shine better in that essence. You mentioned Jill Scott, Queen Badu, D'Angelo. Yes, he had his hand in that bag too, but a touch of jazz, also known as Jazzy Jeff, had his hand in that bag along with Floetry too. Mm-hmm. So you got a solid list, but you kind of hurt my feelings when you said the whole Kanye West. You got a solid list, my brother.
Yeah, I can just say, man, I appreciate your passion and your commitment to Jay Dilla. I think Jay Dilla, like you said, if he didn't pass away, who knows? And I also say that if you don't know about him, you just don't know about him. And then if you know him, you love him. Like, he's literally got like a cult following or some shit. So Jay Dilla is definitely a slept on producer in his impact. But you know, you just taught us a lot, man. So good luck.
Right.
But very quickly, like, no Dre, no Primo. Curious again. I'm shocked by some of these lists. So I'm just curious to know how these guys never made not even the top 5.
Well, I personally didn't pick Dr. Dre. It was a tough decision. He was definitely at like a last removal. I wasn't sure. I wanted to pick Dr. Dre because I'm a huge fan of Dr. Dre. Like, one of the first CDs that I ever owned was The Chronic. I would say it was probably like the 3rd CD that I ever owned was The Chronic. So, you know what I mean, respected Dr. Dre, but I did not pick Dr. Dre. And part of the reason for that was I feel like, as far as being able to create albums, it's a lot of assistance involved in his legacy that was not presented initially. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm working with this group of producers. Like, Organized Noise is like, it's 3 people. You know this. There's no question. It took a long time for people to know to find out that Scott Storch was involved in the creative process with Dr. Dre. It took Sam Snead, who is from Pennsylvania, that was involved in the production process with Dr. Dre. It took a long time for people to notice. So, and I feel like there was a lot of credit given to Dr. Dre. Like, even with Daz Dillinger, it took a long time for people to know this and it be, you know, like public information almost, to know that Dr. Dre had this much help and these producers are this talented, where he took the credit. You know what I'm saying? And again, respect is like, you know, like I ain't about to blow up my own spot and say that, yeah, I got these other people. But at the same time, it's like there was so many talented producers that was around him. And granted, it might have just been he's good at recruiting talent. But at the same time, it's like, man, it's Dre at the top, but I mean, Scott Storch had his own verses because he's that dope of a producer. So if you're working with that dope of a producer, then how much are you doing? Like I found out when I found out that he didn't know how to play the piano, and he had to teach himself how to play chords years and years and years down the line. It's like, man, like how dope of a producer are you if you got all of these secret weapons? It's like it's almost a la Drake with a ghostwriter to me.
Basically,
that's why I know Drake.
Yeah, when you mention Dr. Dre and you know the umbrella of people that came from up under him, it's kind of like football. Or basketball rather, how Phil Jackson took what Tex Winter had and made the triangle and made it better. When you mentioned Scott Storch and his verses against Manny Fresh, if Manny Fresh was on there, he definitely would have been in there for me because Scott Storch, he was good. Like a lot of people didn't know he was with the Roots and he made You Got Me. But a lot of the stuff when it comes to like people that other producers that assisted with Dr. Dre was just that. They assisted. So Keys does not negate the synths and the drum pattern and the cymbals and everything else that goes along with it. When you look at the verses that Scott Storch did against Manny Fresh, of the 20 songs he played, I think only I wrote this down. Of the 20 songs he played as his hits, only 3 of them he solely produced by himself. All the others he assisted on. So when he played Eve, Blow Your Mind, that was Dr. Dre too. When he played, I think Lean Back was one that he did by himself. Make It Rain was one, but out of 20 songs, so it's like Scott Storch, he just was in the right place at the right time and he capitalized, which he should. But I don't think that because you look at people like Puff too. Puff got Stevie J and he got all these other people on his umbrella too. And then you look at Prince. Prince was a master of Prince had an umbrella of people that he worked with too. So I don't think, for me, that didn't negate from Dr. Dre, because people came to me, that adds to his genius or to his legacy, the fact that, hey, look, I'm putting these people off. And not only that, but if you work with Dr. Dre, you got a hit. When you left Dr. Dre, not many people got a hit. So when you work with Scott Storch, you kind of got a hit. But when you left Scott Storch, you didn't have a hit either. But if you go to that Dr. Scott Storch, you got a hit.
That's right.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Nobody had Pete Rock on their list. And I'm curious as how could people leave off Pete Rock off their list? What did they not see in Pete Rock that left them?
I love Pete Rock. I don't know if I would have put him on my list still, but I totally give. I'm a serious hip hop head. I don't know if y'all even see this shirt I got.
Yeah, I see it.
It's all of this shit that we talking about. And Mecca and the Soul Brother was definitely an innovative album. I listened to that all day long. Like, I love Pete Rock. But I don't know if I still don't know if I would change my list.
I didn't pick him because we couldn't pick 10 producers.
Okay.
Y'all didn't pick 10 producers, but a lot of y'all had Swiss Beats over Pete Rock.
That's
and
one I'm curious to know about too.
You look at an album like Illmatic, you look at Tribe Called Quest, you look at LL Cool J, you look at he was on the radio with Marley Marl, he did Run DMC, he's still doing things with Griselda. He's been out since early 90s, and he's still relevant today. And you look at people like Swiss Beats who had, everybody said the word window. Right. Swiss Beats had a window, but Pete Rock, DJ, still touring, scratching, engineering on the sound flip of it, remixing and R&B artists. Y'all left him off. I'm a little
dope. He was just here in Oakland at the High Road Day.
He's still touring, so he's touring, so that means he's still dope and still relevant. So that's why I was wondering, and y'all didn't even have one person had Marley Marl, which was great. I like that, but the Bomb Squad, Look at the catalog, and people with look at the catalog of the Bomb Squad. You know, I'm just curious why y'all left them off y'all list.
You know, to sorry to cut you guys, to add to that, one of the reasons me and D, when we talked about this show, was, and I think we all are influenced by it, is that we wanted to be able to separate popularity from talent, right? Or greatness, right? And I think that's maybe, to answer the question overall, is maybe that's a part of it. I think sometimes as hip hop fans, you can get blinded by popularity, right? And it makes you overlook somebody's greatness because they may not be in your face all the time, right? And so that doesn't and shouldn't negate their contributions to hip hop. And, you know, I think everybody on this panel is of a certain age where we could probably look at a generation coming up under us who wouldn't know half of these people that we're mentioning or their contributions to hip hop because of the way the popular artists are pushed in their face, right? So I just think it's dope, a lot of the things we've been talking about on this, because I think it really was the purpose of this show, you know?